Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and tuning in to our 2020 Faces of Innocence Gala. Although we cannot be together in person, we're excited to be able to host our event virtually and sharing it with all of you. Will and I are honored to be the honorary event chairs. The Midwest Innocence Project worked to exonerate people that have been convicted of crimes they did not commit and change the system to prevent future wrongful convictions. They continuously shed light on causes of wrongful convictions, including misconduct, flawed policies, systemic racism, and eyewitness misidentification. Their work and advocacy has had a larger impact by leading a growing movement of public education, policy reform, and support for those fighting for their freedom and for those who have returned home. This is why we are working hard to support the Midwest Innocence Project and the work they're doing.
We cannot do it alone. The Midwest Innocence Project can only free innocent people and tackle the system that puts them there with your support. I want to personally thank each of you for your presence tonight, wherever you may be, and your support as we work to correct the incredible injustice MIP clients face each day. This event is an opportunity for us to learn about and assist this organization. We cannot continue the work for MIP without you. There's a donate button on the screen below me tonight that you can click to help donate, or text to give by using 44321. We have a moving event planned tonight, so stay with us. Now, I would like to introduce the President of MIP Board of Directors, Mr. Bob Hoffman.
Good evening. On behalf of the board of the Midwest Innocence Project, I want to welcome you all and thank you for joining us tonight. As we all know, this is a very different format than we've had in years past, but we're very excited to be here with you virtually. This is our 13th annual Faces of Innocence Gala, and even in this current state of uncertainty, you all have helped us very much to continue to raise money and awareness for the MIP. I would also like to give a special thanks and recognition to our presenting sponsors, Will and Senia Shields, and the Reed Family Trust. We look forward to a great evening tonight in support of the Midwest Innocence Project. I want to thank all of our sponsors this evening for their generous partnership and their commitment to our organization. Without you all, we would not be able to continue this mission. We're extremely grateful to this year's honorary event chairs, Mr. Will and Senia Shields, for their continued advocacy and support. Thank you also to all of our board members and to our MIP staff, our partners at UMKC, MU, KU, the Iowa State Public Defender Wrongful Convictions Division, and to all of the lawyers, students, and other professionals who volunteer time and who work on these cases, to all of our friends and supporters, and to all of our clients. Together, all of us, we are the Midwest Innocence Project. We have important work in front of us tonight. By tuning in this evening, you have already done a great thing by showing your support. I'd like to remind you to bid on your favorite silent auction item, and to encourage you to bid high, please. Every dollar that we raise tonight goes to help continue the fight for injustice. And that fight continues even though we're in a pandemic. In fact, in many ways, it's intensified. We've got clients who are in prison in some of the most dangerous places right now. They've got a greater need than even ever before, and they're challenged additionally by closures of courts and delays all over the country, all over our region, that really present a challenge to our clients and to our staff. The need could not be greater. I want to mention that the silent auction will stay open all the way through the event tonight, so please keep bidding. You can text to give. All you have to do is text GIVE 44321. You can donate on the Donate Here button that's located on the screen. And you are also, I'd remind you, able to continue buying golden tickets all the way through the event until the tickets are drawn this evening. So please keep buying the golden ticket through the virtual program. Tonight we're going to hear an exciting presentation, an interesting and thought-provoking presentation from Yusef Salaam, followed by an excellent panel discussion. Please stay with us and hear those portions of the event. I want to thank you again for your time and for your interest in being with us here this evening, wherever you may be, actually. And I'd like to turn the program over now to the MIP's Executive Director. Before I do that, I want to give a short introduction about Ms. Bushnell. Many of you know her, and hopefully you all have seen and know her energy and her passion for this organization and for this event. Without Tricia and her efforts daily, this organization would not survive, frankly. We depend upon her greatly, and our mission is advanced so much by Tricia's day in, day out work and effort. So a special welcome and thank you to Tricia and to all of the MIP staff, all of whom work tirelessly for this important effort. Thank you, and now the tables for Tricia.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be with you tonight, with a group of people who act, who don't just care about injustice, but do, who speak out when you see something wrong, and work to make our vision of justice a reality. But I also need to take some time to just talk about the moment that we are in and what's going on in the world right now. It would be disingenuous if I didn't say that it is an exhausting time to be someone trying to change the criminal legal system. We are here together right now in this way in order to keep ourselves safe in light of COVID-19. But while we can be together and be socially distant, our clients cannot. Across the country right now, in prisons and jails, thousands are being infected as COVID-19 ravages the system. And despite all of the cries that we and other advocates have made, little has been done to release individuals. And it's hard to know that for our clients, that their families, that important critical witnesses in their cases will become sick. And some of them may die. In fact, the first person to die in custody in the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections was Mr. Sutton, who had served 30 years for a crime he did not commit. Just days before he passed, the prosecutor had agreed to review his case. And it's hard to stand here in these moments and think, how can we keep going on? How can we have hope? But we must. And we have to take an acknowledgement for the millions who have marched and continued to march to protest police violence and police brutality, to protest the deaths of Black individuals who were denied the presumption of innocence, the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Elijah McClain, who were denied the presumption of innocence guaranteed to them under the Constitution simply because they were Black. And to know that their families are still waiting for justice, but that a system fights back with all of its power and denies justice to individuals by saying prosecutors are absolutely immune, or law enforcement is mostly immune from any consequences or repercussions of their actions. And that is the moment where I stand for you today. But I have to tell you, even in light of all of that, even knowing everything that is here and that we must do, I still have hope. I still have hope that we will change this, that we will make our vision of justice reality because of all of you. Because all of you can show up and make the movement we need to change our system. And the reality is, the problems with the criminal legal system are not new. They have always been here. It has always been difficult. But together with you, we have always been able to make a difference. Together, we stood beside Ricky Kidd when he came home in August after serving 26 years for a crime he didn't commit here in Kansas City. It took 11 tries for Ricky to win his justice. He lost 11 times because the system, even though the crime was solved, even though we knew who the real perpetrators were, the system fought back. Even when presented with the evidence of his innocence and knowing who had really committed the crime, prosecutors did nothing. The Attorney General did nothing. And that was not justice. They argued it was too late. He should have presented it before, that his innocence was not enough. In fact, they argue that innocence isn't enough in Missouri unless someone was sentenced to death. And Ricky hadn't been sentenced to death. But we don't believe that. We know that no system based on justice could ever say that is true. And together with you, we joined our voices and we created a movement that could not be ignored. And on August 15th, Judge Darrell Atkins ruled that Ricky Kidd had to come home because he was actually innocent. And that is what gives me hope. That when we come together, we will move these mountains. And I know that we will keep coming together. And we will keep doing what we need to do. And that we will do it for Lamar Johnson, who has served now, as of July 12th, 25 years for a crime he did not commit. 25 years ago, Lamar Johnson was picked up for a crime, and when they had no evidence to tie him to it, to convict him with, the state and the city of St. Louis manufactured it. Police reports were manufactured to create motives that didn't exist. The eyewitness who said he could not identify the perpetrators who had committed the crime at night, in the dark, wearing ski masks, could, after he received previously undisclosed payments. The police gave false statements about the amount of time it would take for Lamar to get from where he was with his alibi to the crime scene in order to try to undermine what was his absolutely rock-solid alibi. And since that time, the real perpetrators have confessed and the crime is solved. But still, Lamar is in prison. Last year, the Circuit Attorney of St. Louis, Kim Gardner, reviewed Lamar's case and all of the new evidence and found even more evidence in her files of misconduct. And she filed a motion for new trial stating that Lamar's conviction needs to be overturned. But still, he is waiting. He is waiting because in that time, the Missouri Attorney General stepped in and said a prosecutor does not have the power to overturn a conviction and that it was too late. That Lamar should have presented this evidence before. But there is no expiration date on justice. And we don't believe that any system should stand on that as a basis. And because of you, because of the community and the power that you are built, hundreds of prosecutors, legal scholars, and lawyers have weighed in from across the nation to say that is wrong. Lamar Johnson is innocent, and that is enough. That is enough for him to come home. The system must yield. And together with your support, we have fought this case all the way to the Missouri Supreme Court, where we are awaiting a decision. And really it's because of you, because of the collective strength of our power and our voices and our actions working together to make change that gives me hope in this moment, in these deeply exhausting moments, that we will make it and we will continue. Because if we want to end wrongful convictions, if we want to work ourselves out of existence, we must challenge one of the leading causes of wrongful convictions, and that is systemic racism. We must not hide our head in the sand. We must not acknowledge that these problems that can be so big where you just want to throw your hands up are still our problems to solve. It will be long, it will be difficult, and it will be tiring. But we will continue, and we will do it together with you. I know that together we will continue to challenge the system that sees poverty as evidence of guilt, that can find a defendant has not asked for a lawyer when he asks for his lawyer dog, but rather has asked for a canine, or that can uphold the conviction of a black defendant who was sentenced to death by an all-white jury, led by a juror who wondered out loud if black men even have souls. This is what has always been there. This is not new, and neither is our will to fight it. Together, we will make our vision for justice a reality where justice is achievable for all people, regardless of where they were born, the wealth of their family, or their race. And together, we will continue to bring home innocent people still waiting for justice. People like Michael Polite, who was 14 years old when he woke up to the smell of smoke and found his mother burning on the ground and was immediately taken into custody. People like Antoine Young, who was with his family at a barbecue at the time of the crime, but whose attorney did nothing to verify his alibi or investigate his case, because like so many of our clients and those around him, Antoine was born poor and black. Together, we will right these wrongs. And because, like with Ricky Kidd, John Brown, Rodney Lincoln, Faye Jacobs, and so many others, we won't stop fighting for what is right and for what is just, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. And we know that you will keep fighting with us. And now it is my great honor to introduce the recipient of our Freedom Award, Attorney Cindy Dodge, for the incredible work she did to free Ricky Kidd.
Ricky Kidd was convicted of a double murder that took place near Swope Park back in 1996. Kidd's name was anonymously called into police, but Kidd had an alibi for the entire day that even included him filling out paperwork for a gun permit. Multiple people swear they were with him. On top of that, Kidd's defense team says it's now clear who committed the crime.
Thought we did it. Let's celebrate. And my legal team was telling me, calm down, Temperance. I'm thinking, no, we did this. It's over. We proved their case. I said, Temperance, Ricky, that's not how it works.
Because the legal process does not allow the courts to hear the merits of his claim.
The Missouri Attorney General argued that the evidence was available or could have been available back then.
The state's response was never, oh, he's not innocent. It was, the process says he doesn't get to be heard.
It was devastating, and even though it was 2009, it felt like the whole process from when the initial arrest took place and the cold handcuffs got put on my wrist. I felt like I was starting all over again. And for the first time, if I'm being honest, I began to doubt. When the dream team was assembled, it was a whole different ball game.
I was an attorney that helped Sean O'Brien and the Midwest Innocence Project with the case.
She was a prosecutor before becoming a defense lawyer, and I just felt that she had the mental understanding to know what went wrong and how to put it in front of a judge and make sure that they get it right.
That's really where she lives and where you see the very best of Cindy.
And then I got on board with the post-conviction relief motion for asking for DNA. And it took many years to just get that part resolved.
She came and she wouldn't take no for an answer at what it was a cost to herself. She'd never say that, but that's what it is.
She joked with Tricia and I all the time, like, I don't know how you guys do this. I don't know how you guys sleep at night. This case keeps me up. I dream about it.
It was very important to me that this man get freedom, because that's what justice is supposed to be about.
Now, a judge has taken a serious look at this old case and ruled this needs to go back before a jury or Kidd needs to simply be released from prison.
But 2019, we went in that courthouse. I was scared that I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison for a crime I didn't commit. I didn't know what this judge was going to do. Like, what would make it different? The last time was just as good as the other 11 times. It came from Judge Atkins, and I
stopped and
checked our email, and it was just sort of immediate tears and then a gathering of everyone in the office to come look.
I didn't know if my world was going to come crashing down, because this was pretty close to it for Ricky if it didn't happen.
But when that order came down and my lawyers called me, and Cindy Dodge was on the call,
I probably spoke too fast, because it's not like the three of us had a plan on how we were going to tell him. I guess I just blurted it out.
and then Cindy busted out, "Ricky, you're free! You're free! The judge said you're free to go. The order came down today. You're free to go." And I just broke out in tears.
I mean, it was an overwhelming feeling, and especially because we won on actual innocence, right? And to share that with her, it was, I mean, Cindy would say it was pretty fucking great, I'm pretty sure.
That jubilant feeling that I was waiting on for 23 years and finally came. The words that I was waiting to hear for 23 years finally came. I was free, and I was going home, and Cindy Dodge's voice giving it to me meant so much to me on so many different levels.
This is a monumental day for Mr. Kidd, who has spent more than half his life behind bars.
Getting to see a client you've been with for years and years and years walk out the door and walk into a new life and walk into freedom, there's nothing like that.
For him to finally be able to stand there in front of everyone and speak for himself, I mean, that is the best moment.
I feel like I just walked out of a nightmare and into a dream, if that makes sense. Because this is a dream. I dreamed this 23 years ago. I thought that I would go to Jackson County Jail in 1996 and walk back out with the understanding that they had the wrong person. And it took 23 years and a courageous judge and an amazing team to bring about this day. So I'm excited, guys. I'm elated and I'm excited.
There is nothing more rewarding, in my opinion, than being able to right a wrong. We rarely get that opportunity in life to be able to do something so grand, so bigger than yourself, and to the benefit of someone who might be a complete stranger.
If we didn't have volunteer lawyers like Cindy who are coming on and helping us try and litigate these cases, we literally could not keep operating.
You're making a difference. The system is changing. This system is having to deal with questions of what it means to have people who are innocent and who are incarcerated, and what the process is to get them home. And we couldn't do that without supporters.
Wow, isn't that pretty? And I can't read the fine print because I don't have my glasses on, but
Oh, wow.
I can see my name.
That's nice.
Yes, it's beautiful. I thought when I received the email telling me that I was going to be honored with this, that it was a practical joke. You know, I thought, those guys, they're mean. I had to reread it several times to make sure I was reading it correctly, because I'm not, that attorney that you would see in articles or anything. I was just telling your comrade, I don't usually do things, socially or with the profession. I'd rather do things like what I've been doing with MIP and volunteer work in the city and stuff. And so this to me is incredibly humbling. It's an honor that I don't have words for. Ricky's the one who deserves it. He's the one that put in the 23 years. And I am just so grateful that it turned out okay for him, and that I don't have to worry about him behind bars anymore. So this is a real honor, and I am very, very happy to receive it. And it's just not anything at all what I expected, but I in gratitude, give it to Ricky. He deserves it. Thank you.
Next, I am ecstatic to introduce the recipients of this year's Justice for the Innocent Award.
If you look nationwide, 5% of the people currently serving prison terms are innocent of the crimes that they're in prison for. 5%.
These are human beings, people who had to go through the horror of being caught up in the system, knowing they're innocent. And the work of this project allows some of those miscarriages of justice to be remedied.
Here I am living in Missouri. I'm not a lawyer, but I know a lot about actual innocence. I wonder if there's something I can do to get an Innocence project going.
Our idea was to try to provide opportunities for MU journalism students to learn more about the criminal justice system and its flaws, and to have journalism students work with law students on cases.
We teamed up with law firms. It turned out they didn't really want to work with the students, and they didn't want to take on a whole case. So we just had to do what we could.
We had $300,000 over a 3-year stretch, and after that I didn't know if those who were going to be raising the money would have much success.
The one thing we did not have most of that time was someone who could go into the field and really take on the cases and take them to the next step. And we started getting a flood of letters asking for our help.
So it was a winnowing process, because even if everybody who applied was deserving of our help, we were probably going to be able to help 1 in 100. And the average exoneration takes 10 years and costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So we have to do the best we can to get the closest thing to justice for those people. And obviously step number 1 is getting them free from incarceration, and step number 2 is getting them as much financial recompense for the time that they lost that will allow them at least to have some opportunity to get back on their feet.
One of the critical things is trying to help the public defender system in Missouri get more resources.
To be preventive, to be proactive, instead of trying to undo wrongful convictions later.
MIP has done a lot of legislative work that has helped to get aspects of the system fixed, but there are still hundreds, thousands of people in Missouri who are incarcerated and imprisoned who should not be there.
I've been impressed by the commitment and dedication of the people who work for the Midwest Innocence Project, both full-time staff, but also volunteers, because they give of their time and energy and passion to try to make a difference.
I strongly encourage you to support Innocence projects that are committed to freeing the innocents and have a track record of doing so.
Let's go back to 2006 when I, a part-time professor at the University of Missouri in Columbia and a non-lawyer, came up with a plan for a Midwest Innocence Project, went to the university for some money. The university president at the time, Elson Floyd, said yes. I had prepared for that visit with Elson Floyd by talking to other honorees tonight, like Rod Uphoff and Ellen Suni. And when we actually had a plan in place and hired Tiffany Murphy as our first legal director and began taking applications from inmates who said they were innocent, it was one of the happiest periods of my life, professional life, and that happiness has never really diminished because the Midwest Innocence Project, long after I was deeply involved, has actually fulfilled its promise and exonerated individuals who had no business ever being charged with a crime, much less being put behind bars. So my thanks to everybody who played a role starting in 2006 and everybody who's watching this tonight and everybody who will continue to do the hard work in the future.
So I'm really pleased to get this award and want to thank the board of the Innocence Project for recognizing me for the work that I did in getting UMKC and University of Missouri involved, working together so that we could really take the project to the next level and begin seriously working on cases that have led to a number of exonerations. I do feel, especially since I've received awards from MIP before, that I want to especially acknowledge Steve Weinberg, who for a period of time was my primary, what I call partner in crime. And without Steve taking the initiative to get the university moving forward, to provide the funding that led to the first full-time staff for the project, I don't think we would have gotten where we have gotten, perhaps ever, but certainly not at the point that we did. So I want to especially extend my congratulations to Steve, and to say this has been a collaborative project from day one. It would be impossible to name all the collaborators, but many of you know who you are, and I, over the years, have appreciated your concern, your passion, your willingness to invest whatever it was you had into making this work, and it's so exciting to see and get to know the people who have benefited from the work that we have all done, and the many, many students who've invested in so many ways working on the project as well.
I'm very honored to receive this award from the Midwest Innocence Project. I'd like to thank my parents for instilling in me the value of the importance of fighting for justice. Throughout my career, I've tried to do that as best I can. I very much have enjoyed working with the Midwest Innocence Project in their fight to secure exoneration for those people who have been wrongfully convicted. But we have a lot more work to do. So I hope you'll join me in supporting the Midwest Innocence Project and continuing to fight, because there is so much more fighting to be done. Thank you very much.
It is my honor to introduce this year's keynote speaker, Dr. Yusef Salaam. Dr. Salaam is a committed advocate and educator focusing on issues of false confessions, police brutality and misconduct, press ethics and bias, race and law, and the disparities in the American criminal justice system. He is a member of the Exonerated Five, has received the President's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016 from President Barack Obama, and currently serves on the board of the Innocence Project. His story was featured in the Netflix feature-limited series called When They See Us, directed by Ava DuVernay. Thank you.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. And I first just like to start off by saying, may the peace and blessings of the owner of all peace and blessings be upon you. You know, in 1989, I was run over by the spike wheels of justice. It was the type of tragic event that nobody should ever have to face. But there I was, laid out at 15 years of age, with my mother, my sister and brother, and supporters coming to my aid, and systemically I've often said that the fabric of the fiber of the family is being pulled, and it leaves gaping holes. These holes become the indelible scars that we are left with. And here we are 30 years later, showing you the faces of innocence. So what happened to me is not unique. It is actually something that we found happens far too often. Whether that means that there's a rush to judgment because they want to solve a case quickly, or whether that means that they just are practicing what has become known as systemic oppression and systemic racism. We've seen far too often the outcries of Black Lives Matter. And the question is always, well, don't all lives matter when they hear that? But the people who have been paying attention understand that we're not saying all lives don't matter. What we are saying is that there was a time in this country that people of color were looked at as 3/5 of a human being. There was a time in this country that slavery was legal. And then there was a time in this country where they said, we are going to abolish slavery, but then they packaged it in a very nice way as a part of the founding documents of this country with the 13th Amendment. To my surprise, I had no knowledge of the 13th Amendment until I had been in prison for a number of years. I thought it was Ashton Kutcher playing a trick on me. I mean, I'm looking at this document and I'm saying to myself, for the punishment of a crime, they can turn you back into a state of slavery? Now I was understanding what I was looking at. Here I was in the prison industrial complex, and I had been told that I was a political prisoner. But of whose politics? I had been given a number when I entered the adult facility, and that number was 95A 1113. I'll never forget that number. That number is seared into me by the system. This number means that when I turned 21 and they sent me to the adult facility, they gave me the number. I turned 21 in 1995, hence the number 95. I turned 21 in the first part of the year, hence the A in that number. But what's more significant is that on February 27th, I turned 21 in 1995, and I became the 1,113th person to enter the door, and it was just February 27th. Everything that has happened to me, interestingly enough, has happened for me. I often think about Dr. King, and he talks about how when you find what it is that your purpose is in life, do it as if God himself called you to do it at this very moment. Often he's quoted as saying that if it is your purpose in life to be a street sweeper, he wanted all people to be included, so he went to the bottom of what would be considered the working class. And he said, if it is your purpose in life to be a street sweeper, sweep the streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep the streets like Beethoven composed music, like Leah Tom Price sang before the opera. Sweep the streets as if God himself called you at this very moment to be that, so that no one ever can say there was never a better street sweeper than you. You see, when I was run over by the spike wheels of justice, they never imagined that we would come out shining. It was almost as if the biblical characters, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, were all of us. We have been placed in the fire, and we came out shining without any smoke. I often look at this case that was put upon us, and I think about the inception. I think about Donald Trump taking out the full-page ads in New York City's newspapers, calling for the state to kill us. I think about, had his ad had proper effect, we would have been hanging from trees in Central Park. Had his ad taken proper effect, we wouldn't be here. You see, what you see in this ad isn't just an ad. This ad is a representation of thought. This ad is a captivating document. I'm a graphic designer, so when I've looked at it again, I realized that in big, bold print, they wanted to captivate the viewing audience. Bring back the death penalty is what's written. Bring back our police. There was a sense that being black was a crime. There was a sense that in the 80s, when they had the drug epidemic, they had the opioid epidemic, but in the 80s, it was the war on drugs. And many people that we've known went to prison with football numbers. And now it's the opioid epidemic. And they want to make sure that people who are hurting get the opportunity to get treatment through the Betty Ford clinics of the world. But when I was a youth, it wasn't the same. This ad, which really speaks about the conditions of New York at the time, the fears that the public was experiencing, because they were being told what they were seeing, and sometimes they were experiencing something that they had no idea where its roots lied. This ad was written 2 weeks after we were accused. 2 weeks after they said that we had raped the Central Park jogger, Tricia Mealy. It took another 13 years before the truth to come out. Within that time, We all went through hell. That hell is seen in the film When They See Us by the award-winning filmmaker Ava DuVernay. The whole world got an opportunity to experience what it was to go through the Central Park jogger case, to be known as what we were known back then as the Central Park Five. But then you all saw part 4. And I got to tell you, Ava DuVernay pulled me aside just before we were about to watch it all together. And she said, Yusef, this is the TV version. Part 4 tore us all down. It was in that moment I realized that Corey Wise, who was my friend and still is my friend, he could have lost his life. Corey Wise could have folded under the pressure of one of those many parole board hearings and could have said, this is too much hell. I'm just going to tell him I did it so I can get out of here. But Corey Wise had tenacity. He had stick-to-itiveness. He was a part of a greater purpose where he went in to free me, but he ended up freeing us all. A good friend of mine, Jimmy Gardner, said, thank God I don't look like what I've been through. You know, when you look at the faces of innocence, oftentimes you see people who are gentle. You see people who have forgiven those who have run over them. You see people who have been trying to push forward. But the crux of the matter is that we are actually trying to also plant seeds in the hearts and in the minds of the people who see us. Because those folks are just like the young lady in California. In 2013, we were showing the film The Central Park Five by the award-winning documentarian Ken Burns. And this young woman, 13 years old, she stands up in the audience and says, I have a question. She says, I'm 13 years old. I want to become a cadet. I'm sorry, she said, I'm 13 years old. I am a cadet. I want to become a cop. What advice can you give me? I got to tell you, everything in me was telling her to run, to go to do something else, to not go into that profession. But I realized something. I realized that I was speaking to the future. And this was a unique opportunity. You see, in my travels throughout the United States, on the side of cop cars, I've seen the words, in some variation, to serve and protect. That's a noble idea. And in New York, they go a step above that, and they add the words courtesy, professionalism, and respect. My advice to that young girl, who I hope is a great cop today, is that she do her job. If she can become a person who voluntarily decides that she wants to provide stability, security, protection for the community that she is policing, she'd be one of the best cops out there. If she can provide courtesy, professionalism, and respect, see, we need the spotlight to be shown on good policing so that we can take examples from that. So that when we turn on the news, we won't see another person being killed. We won't see another person being vilified. We won't see another Central Park Five, now known as the Exonerated Five, but I want to call it the Central Park Five just for a moment. Because the word Central Park Five was wrapped around the idea that we had done the crime. We have become the modern-day Scottsboro Boys. This ad that Donald Trump placed in the New York City's newspapers that ran 2 weeks after we were accused, this ad gave a nod to the most sinister side of our society. And it gave a key to the door being opened by people like Pat Buchanan. Pat Buchanan writes in the papers that we should take the eldest one of them, Corey Wise, and hang him from a tree in Central Park. We should take the others and horsewhip them. Maybe this will make the city's parks safe again. And he said that we should do this by June 1st. This was a false accusation. They knew that we hadn't done it. Everything that they were using against us pointed to the fact that we had not done this crime. There was no DNA evidence that matched us, but there was DNA in this case. And 13 years later, that truth came out, and the real perpetrator was found. He was already in prison. But because they got stuck with the lie that we had done this, while we were going to trial, he was out committing more crime. I remember him talking about it. And he said that one of his last victims was a young, pregnant Latina woman. He said that he came into our home and brandished a knife. She asked him, she pleaded with him, would you let me put my children in the next room? He allowed her to do so. And then when she came back, he raped her, stabbed her to death, killing her and our unborn child. Had the system got it right, that young lady would be alive today. Her husband would have been able to appreciate his wife, their child, and the rest of their children. But here we are, 31 years later in my case, we're still calling out for justice. We're still calling out for change. We want the whole system to be corrected so that we can walk into the future of the dream that Dr. King so eloquently said, where we become the kaleidoscope of the human family. But we're here to change that. We're here to ask people, we're here to ask everyone to support the work of what's being done here so that nobody goes to prison for a crime that they didn't commit. And more importantly, if you happen to have done a crime, that you get a fairer justice through things like the Sentencing Project, that things happen in a way that gives you life as opposed to give you death. There was a time where it was called the correctional facility. People knew that if they committed a crime, they had an opportunity to go to a place to pay their debt to society and to return productive citizens. We are now the #1 country that locks up people and throws away the key. We got to do better. We got to be better. And so, what I want to share with you as I close is a poem from my book. This is actually my signature piece. It's called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." The revolution will not be televised. I can remember when that statement made me sad inside. Too young to be in it. Now I couldn't even see it? Why? Why couldn't the revolution be televised? The Last Poets, Gil Scott-Heron. As I grew up, I began to see. They left theirs, and I too wanted to leave a mark on history. A man in half, and I wanted to bask in that task that set men free. But a revolution, the revolution, is where I knew I had to be. The revolution will not be televised. They didn't want to display the victory of those quote unquote lesser men. The revolution will not be televised. Smile. I know, because I am the revolution. Thank you.
Taught the sun where to stand in the morning, and who told the ocean you can only come this far, and who showed the moon where to hide till evening, whose words alone can catch a falling star. Well, I know my Redeemer lives. I know my Redeemer, He lives. All of creation testifies that this life within me cries. I know my Redeemer lives. Yes, the very same God that spins things in orbit runs to the weary, the worn, and the weak, and the same gentle hands that held me when I was broken, they conquered death to bring me victory. Well, I know my Redeemer lives. I know my Redeemer, He lives. All of creation testify that this life within me cries. I know my Redeemer, He lives to take away my shame, and He lives forever. I proclaim that the pain that brought my sin was the precious life He gave, but now He's alive and there's an empty grave. I know my Redeemer lives. I know my
Thank you all. It's been a powerful evening. And for those of you who have participated, I do just want to let you know that we are finishing up the golden tickets that will be on sale until 9 p.m. So if that is something that interests you, there still are a few left, so you can go ahead and purchase that. And the winner will be drawn at 9 p.m. But right now, I'm very excited to be able to sit down and speak and talk with Dr. Yusef Salaam and Mr. Will Shields, two amazing humans that we've been lucky enough to have supporting us and our work this year. You have the opportunity to participate in this conversation, and we hope that you will. Please feel free to enter any questions that you have in the chat. As you see, I am sitting up here with an iPad. I am able to see your questions right now, live, and I would love to have this conversation with you engaging us.
Nice.
But so first, I wanted to open up just with a few questions as we let folks get some time in. And one of the first things that I was thinking about, Dr. Salaam, you talked about the victim in the case that you were convicted of, and also the subsequent victims that existed. Yes. And I know that for me, the work that we do is a fine line to not want to re-victimize people, but also know that we need to do things for all the different parts of justice.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about what that experience has been like for you, or if there are things that we can learn about that as we're making sure that we include victims' voices in our work, in our movement.
You know, I think victims' voices is a necessary component, but also being sensitive enough to be mindful that sometimes folks don't want their names mentioned or things like that, you know. But when we are able to study what's going on in a meaningful way, then we can find ways to make sure that we don't victimize people. We don't have victims anymore, you know. One of the things about victimization, which is kind of weird to think about it this way, what is it called? It's a term that they use, victim blaming, right? And oftentimes the victim blaming is put on, let's say, a woman wearing a particular outfit, which, you know, no one should be accosted because of what they have on. You know, but with the Central Park Jogger case, one of the worst things that happened was that we became blamed for our own imprisonment. People said, well, you know, they made these false confessions. And if that was true, I was the only one that never made a false confession. But even though those false confessions were found to be inconsistent with anything else that was being presented, therefore, these detectives, like one of the great things about today, especially today, right? Like in the age of COVID-19, we can binge watch anything, right? So we become pseudo experts. And so that means that if we see shows like CSI, NCIS, you know, any of the flavors of great TV that's out there, and we begin to analyze what truths are there, we realize that, you mean forensics is an actual science? So when they show these things that, you know, a police officer or a forensic scientist rather can come into a space and say, based on the splatter of blood, the assailant was 6'2". And according to this footprint, and I'm just getting it all wrong, but you know, you get where I'm coming. According to this footprint, he was left-hand dominant. I mean, who would think that you could get all of that?
Well, they
from?
can't get. We would say they can't get all of that, but we were led to believe that.
Right, but you know, and I'm saying that those things though kind of tell us something, that DNA should absolve anyone. And I don't like to use the word DNA because sometimes it sounds flimsier than the fullness of deoxyribonucleic acid, you know, and it's that thing that in many of these cases is the key that frees people. And sometimes people have been in prison 20, 30, I think there was an individual that was in there for 40 years before they found out that they had not done this crime. You know, I mean, there's ways that we can get it right. You know, and a lot of it is about studying what happened. Where were the wrongs that were made? How can we figure out as we try to ensure that we live in a society where crime is way down, right? We don't want to push crime. We want to live in a society where people feel safe, they feel comfortable, And so therefore, we also have to study what are the precursors of crime? Like what leads to that on all levels?
Thank you. One of the things that you've mentioned tonight, and I want to bring Will into the conversation, is the discussion of how people, things that the doors have been open for, right, in different kinds of conditions, and the movements that we've seen happening over time. And Will, I think throughout history in the United States, we've seen a long history of athletes speaking out during various social movements on all kinds of issues. And I was wondering if you could speak to that or have any thoughts.
Well, I think it's one of those things that you look at as being able to say that once you get to that level of being a professional athlete, it sort of creates a bigger voice. It gives you the platform to be able to discuss things that currently couldn't be discussed, to shed light on things that currently couldn't be shed on light. One of the things that was really unique when I came here as to play is that there were 17, 18 guys doing different things in the community at one point. And we wanted to figure out how can we make a difference? How can we make a change? And some people use it as that, huddle up for the community or build out the community. And so you have to be able to use that platform. And over history, you've been able to see the Muhammad Alis of the world and the Jim Browns of the world, those leaders be able to use their voice to help make change. And so as being that part of that professional athlete, how do you instill that in other people? And we called it building the bridge. We build the bridge between one particular group of people that didn't really know that was going on or didn't understand that was an issue because it didn't affect their life right that day. And so I think that's where you have to have those athletes to be able to build that bridge and to be able to create that understanding of what's going on in their community and shed light on it. And I think that's what's really important as a professional athlete. And most people say, well, you're not a role model, you're not this. Well, we are a little of everything because we are a microcosm of what community is. So the same problems that you have, we have. And we have to be able to express that and let everyone understand that we are human, we're part of it. And so we want to be able to be that. And I think that's what's really cool about being able to say that the group itself that came before us sort of set the tone for where we should be going and how we're going. And now we have a youth movement, which is even better. The young Patrick Mahomes of the worlds and everyone else that are now taking that mantle. And that's the way it should be. Every time you get to the next generation, they should always be looking to make it better. And that's what you want to instill in them. It's okay to make it better. And that's what we're here tonight, is to make sure that everybody understands that there are still issues. There's still things that has to be worked through.
Well, that is a wonderful segue to our next question from one of our viewers today, which is asking, as a millennial, I'll ask this to both of you, as a millennial, how can I create meaningful change and get my voice heard? It is something I'm so passionate about in this cause, but I don't know where to start.
Wow. We live in a really, really interesting time, I would say, that it used to be that you had to wait to maybe go get hired by, the media or, for this particular kind of job or something like that. Folks are doing very creative things nowadays, and I think utilizing the moment of creativity to say something, to do something, is really what we need, right? It's that genius of being able to look at, because I look at what my children do all the time. They always watch not just YouTube, but YouTube Kids, or they're watching other people things. And I said, man, one day I'm gonna just take up my camera and I'm gonna create a channel of them watching other people's stuff. Maybe they'll be cool with that kind of thing, or maybe people will watch my children. But it's this space of creativity, of being able to look at what's going on, utilize that, and then say to yourself, how can I add my own unique spin and really my own unique touch to that, right? Because we all have platforms, but it's about how we utilize the platform. And it's about what do we want to be known for and known by? Because yes, today it might be a TikTok, but tomorrow that TikTok, if it follows you, you want that TikTok to be something that inspires,
something that moves
something that you
next.
want to be in the future with you, that grows with you, that stays with you. And I think that, the young people especially have this ability now to not only be creative, but to do things in a way that they are intentional about that creativity, that they speak life into movements and give truth to power.
And I think within that realm, the expand is unbelievable because at one point your touch was only within your neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was only within the small world that you live in, where now, you've got people that talk to people all over the world in one little place, and you're not stuck to where you are. And I think that's where the millennials have that chance. They have that opportunity to reach out and learn and understand things from other countries at one time, and then be able to bring the best of the best around to create their own platform, which is really, really unique at this day and age.
Yeah.
So the next question is a big one. But as I said in the beginning, we are not afraid to try to tackle big things, right? So what is your vision of a just future, and how do we end the cycle of harm?
Wow. To bring the marginalized and impacted community to the table. They have the answers. There's a lot of other folks that are trying to figure it out, sometimes creating great solutions, but what's missing a lot of times are the impacted community. Who might be doing the work, who really can speak to the change that we need. And I think that when we bring them and include them, magic happens. It always does.
I'd be interested, I'll just share some of my personal experience as well. So I am Latina, right? I'm a first-generation college student, and that means I'm one of less than 2% of all lawyers in the country who are Latina. And that changes how I interact with my clients, right? I've had family members who are incarcerated, and that matters. And so we think about what does it look like for us to have lawyers who are representing clients that come from the same experience, right? And what does that mean, and how do we build that leadership in that pipeline? And I'm interested too, Will, how that manufactures itself or sets itself out in sports, because when we talk about wanting to impact the world, we're really talking about a lot of avenues here, and I think that there might be some shared similarities.
There are, because the simple fact of it is you're trying to build it, and you're trying to grow it, and everyone has the different walks of life. You walk into a locker room, you have every different walk of life, and how do you get to know that person? How do you get to understand where they come from? But the only way to do it is to be able to get those that ask the good question of, and sometimes it's the tough question. And that's right now where we're at. We have to ask the tough questions of the things we don't understand and be able to say those words. I don't understand. Can you explain it to me? And be okay with that. And I think that's the hard part, because we don't want to step on anybody's toes, but we do have to ask that question of, that person that you're like, well, how did you think that way? And how does that come from you? Because if you understand the background of it, then it actually helps you grow. But if you don't, then you're sort of stuck in your own world of, well, this is how I think it should be, where in all actuality, we don't know where it started. And I think that's where we're coming to, is that everybody has to understand that we all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different things of where my dad told me this and my mom told me that is different than maybe what your dad told you. But we have to understand that and be able to ask the question of, how did you come up to that result? And then how can we fix it to make it better?
I'm interested in this question and continuing this just for a second, because there's something really profound about having the seat at the table. And I think that all of us on this stage or in this moment have a seat at the table. And I wonder what that experience is. What does it look like for you to lift up the voice of others who don't? What is the kind of work that you can tell other folks who are watching today how to get people to have that seat, how to get people to have that power? What does that look like if somebody wants to make that change?
Sometimes it's painful because there's a lot of pain out there. I get the request all the time, hey, how can I get my story told? Because there's holes inside of people that haven't been filled. Even inside of folks who have been compensated, there's still holes inside of them because there's that, the psychosocial value is missing, right? And so once you add that value, that gives that person the ability to say, I matter, You know, it raises them up to being able to live life. And I'm not even just talking about folks that we know about. I'm talking about just individuals in general, right? It gives them the ability to say to themselves, so I wasn't born by mistake, right? I was born on purpose. And then once you attach yourself to that thought, you can move mountains, right? If we look at life and realize that in the story of the birds and the bees, every single person in this world was one of over 400 million options, right? And we made it. That means that there was purpose in that. That God said, I mean, for those of us that believe in the Creator, God said, be to that one, right? No, not that one, that one. And now that person, sometimes because they aren't given the space to be, they feel like they are worth nothing when they're worth everything. The future relies on the generations that's coming. And it's on us to make sure that that generation is equipped with all that they need to be the caretakers of the world tomorrow.
Well, as we were saying earlier today, this time has flown by. We knew it was going to fly by. But I want to give both of you a moment to have some final parting words. I'm going to start first with you, Will, because I think a lot of folks will look to you having come to this work and sort of ask why, right? And many people will wonder, what can I do? And I think that I would love to know, what would you tell someone who is coming to this from outside the legal system? What can they do to help?
Well, I think, you ask the why, then you ask the other question, why not? Why not? Why can't you be a part of it? You can. And there's a lot of different ways that you can be a part of it. We always say, hey, if you don't give time, you can give money. If you don't give money, you can give time. Or you can give an expertise of helping in other fashions of being able to communicate and educate yourself first, and then others from that point forward. And being able to steer somebody into that next realm of, you need to go and look at this website. You need to go and research this. You need to go look at that kind of thing. And to me, that's that piece of growing. And that's why we do what we do as a foundation. We want to build the best community you can do and support the best people that you can to get more knowledge, more understanding, and more education. And that's sort of what we do as we try to build it. And that's the most important piece. And I call it, and we basically go, you have to have action. There's a lot of words. There's a lot of people that sit by the sideline and talk about it. But you got to get action. And so you've got to figure out, what's my action? What am I going to do? You can have a great plan that's written out, but if you don't move on it, it doesn't make a difference. And to me, that's the most important piece, to be able to move forward, have an action, and regardless of what that step is, make a step.
Thank you. And we are so delighted to have you as part of the movement. Dr. Salaam, for you, the last question, and we've heard this from many people, and you mentioned this earlier today, you spent 13 years waiting. You spent 13 years. What gave you hope, and how do you hold on? And what advice do you give to people right now who are looking at the world and wondering, how do we have hope?
Wow. What gave me hope was people pouring into me, even in the worst place in the world. There were officers that would look at me and say, you're not supposed to be here. Like, they knew the case, they understood, those dynamics, but then they would see the person in action. They would say, this doesn't match, something is wrong. I'll never forget one lady, Eleanor Faulkner. She would come sometimes and she would bring Innocence cookies and Tropicana orange juice to my cell. And I happened to like Tropicana orange juice and Innocence cookies. And then I would, as I would be realizing that this is not a mirage, and I would begin to start, man, how good it would taste. I would hear my mother's words saying that she was born in the Jim Crow South. I would think about the Stephen Bikos of the world and say, man, they're trying to kill me with the food. I'm not going to eat that, But because there were people that were using their privilege to believe in me, It gave me the ability to find that why, right? And so Nietzsche says that if you can find the why, you can live anyhow. And it was this moment early in my prison bid that as I was praying, I was told about meditation. I was told about how you free your mind from bondage, because wherever the head goes, the body follows. And so I would couple prayer with meditation, but then I would couple the meditation with what would it feel like to have that victory, right? And so when I go into college classrooms today and I tell youngsters, especially first-year students, I need you to visualize yourself graduating. I need you to physically visualize yourself taking the tassel and moving it from one side of the hat to the next. And I want you to marry that feeling with what would it feel like for yourself, but then also to be in a room with people who supported you. And then think about, in this vision, what it would look like for you to have your dream job. Not your first job, because your first job might not be what you may want it to be. But if you have that idea of what your dream job is, then you can begin to cause the law of attraction to be pulled towards you. And you can begin to reorient things. They call it breaking the cycle, breaking the generational curses, right? And so folks start saying to themselves, this isn't, like prison isn't normal. Like, why did it start like this? What's going on? Like, how do I break that generational curse? Because in a lot of the communities that I come from and that we see and serve, there's youngsters that really think that it's a badge of honor to go to jail. They actually think that you cannot become a man, and slowly but surely you can't become a woman unless you go to prison. And then they find out when it's too late that that's not the place to be. And so it's about making those choices and reorienting things for yourself. And a lot of that stuff can happen inside through meditation. Because for me, when I tell you that I was free every day I was in prison, it's not a lie. I mean, it was hard and difficult because I would wake up and I would be like, I'm still here. You know, that vision was so good. I was walking down the block with my mama, you know? But I'm still here. And I would have to go back into deep meditation. I would have to find out what the meaning of walking meditation was. And so as I'm going throughout my day, I'm still in a state of freedom, even though I'm still not free. Yeah.
Thank you. Just an absolutely incredible and powerful evening, and I am so grateful to you both for being here. And with that, we are going to end. We have some final closing remarks for you from Ricky Kidd.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ricky Kidd. Recently exonerated after spending 23 years and 3 months in a maximum level 5 prison for a crime that I absolutely did not commit. I'm finally home, and I'm happy to be home, to be joined with you all tonight to talk about something that is extremely important to me, but should be equally important to you as well. The word innocent is so familiar to us all for so many reasons and on so many different levels. When we look down at a newborn baby and we smile and we connect with their innocence, we can recall the innocent remarks of a child telling their grandparent that his breath might smell. Or a young girl, innocent, having her first crush on her first boyfriend in high school. Or what about an elderly individual being taken by a scammer, innocent and unaware of the unjust actions unfolding? All of these imageries resonate with each and every one of us far faster than an innocent man or woman who has been innocently tricked into a plea deal or tricked into believing that a public defender is going to adequately defend his or her constitutional right to a fair and just trial. It may take years to finish the process of being deprived of justice. When it's all said and done, a man or woman who was once that innocent baby or child will innocently be hauled away to prison for a crime they did not commit. And their only wrong, ladies and gentlemen, is not knowing that the justice system just committed a wrong against them, and that it would take decades, if they're lucky, to prove their innocence. What they also wouldn't know, neither the everyday citizen who has gathered among us tonight for this gala event, is that it would take your help to extricate those innocent eyes from the disgraceful justice system that wronged them in the first place. I myself would not be here if it wasn't for the generous hearts like you all. And others in the future will not be here if it's not for your generous financial help tonight. If innocence ever mattered to you in your life, let it be tonight. Let it be the image of my face, the sound of my voice, but the echo of other innocent voices crying, help me, please. Will you help them, please? And thank you. God bless, and have a good night.